Welcome down to my 9-foot homemade oak bar. Pour yourself a cold one. You are listening to Bucs in the Basement. My name's Chris, and Craig here is the biggest Pirates fan you'll ever meet. Let's talk Pirates baseball now. Welcome to Bucs in the Basement.
Now I see the changes in this town. They change, they say one thing, but then the next day it's different. They change, but they don't know what they want. All they do is change. Going left, going right, travel day, travel night. That's where we'll go. No excuses, no goodbyes, no one cries, no more lies. We'll never know.
Spring training has begun. Pitchers and catchers reporting. We're getting to see some videos from all of the great Pirates beat reporters down there at Pirate City. And usually hope springs eternal, but it kind of seems like at this point in time, at least Pirates Twitter has gone a little bit off the rails. So I thought that I would bring in a guest for, I don't even know, probably about the 20th time at this point in time. I love talking baseball with him. He's down there. Jason Mackey, Pirates beat reporter from the PG at JMackeyPG. Check it again, folks, because there was another fake one out there again. Jason, how you doing today, brother?
Oh my goodness, Craig. This is it's been a time. It has been a time. Yeah, I feel like we got no food, we got no jobs, our pets' heads are falling off. That's it. Right about where I feel things are. We kicked off spring training with the Pirates Spaces beautifulness, and then, we had a story sort of published to an app that was dead 3 years ago, and it never should have published, and that whole mess. And yeah, I mean, it's just, it's not like the off season was calm, at least in terms of like emotions and frustration. People were plenty mad, and I understand why. And I don't know, I just feel like all of Pirates Twitter needs like a little bit of bourbon or something right about now.
Yeah, and I read that, and I listened to you, and my wife for Valentine's Day got me some of my favorite bourbon, Redemption High Rye. Redemption, you want to sponsor the podcast or whatever, but definitely one of my favorites. Not like a top shelf type thing, but I like it, so that's the bourbon I go to.
I love it. Hey, some of my favorite bourbon are certainly not top shelf. I mean, my all-timer is probably Buffalo Trace, which you can get actually down here. I need to get to a store for like a totally reasonable price. So I'm not fancy. No judgment here.
Yeah. So, I mean, let's dig into some stuff here. With spring training beginning, a lot of the players are already, kind of down there. I know that, the first full workout is probably going to come out like when this is released on Monday. But the pitchers and the catchers is kind of the big thing. The Yasmani Grandal signing, Chris and I already discussed. Chris is not a fan of Yasmani. He's also a White Sox fan and a Pirates fan, so that might explain that. But Yasmani, he spoke to everybody and made a quote that was kind of just like, I'm at the end of my career. These guys are at the beginning. My time is over. It's time to mentor them. But then Derek Shelton kind of speaks about him having a spot and everybody else fighting for the second spot, Jason.
Yeah, it's not great. I don't love it either. I guess I see it. I fully expected them to add catching depth, and I don't have any problem with that. If they would have added Yasmani Grandal on like a minor league deal or something, whatever, totally fine with that. $2.5 million, I don't totally understand it. I mean, the best outcome, what they need to happen, obviously, is Henry Davis earning a spot. And yeah, like you outlined, I mean, they're sort of committing stuff to Yasmani Grandal or, basically said between Derek Shelton and Ben Cherington, he's going to be on the team. I don't know what he can do right now. It hasn't been good. Great that he's a mentor, but they probably could have gotten a mentor who at least plays defense. Like, they could have gotten Jacob Stallings for less. Like, Jacob Stallings probably is not going to hit, but at least recently he has played better defense. He can be a mentor. He can handle the pitching staff, all that stuff. And you'd save a little bit of money. So I don't necessarily get what was going on with Brandel. I mean, maybe you're trying to, like, right, left, have a few more, like, splits and balance. But I don't care what side of the plate you hit from. If you swing and miss, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, it definitely is. It's very strange. And I know when you guys talked to Cherington today on the day we're recording, it's the day after Valentine's Day, the 15th. I mean, he kind of, it said like he has a spot and there's a second spot. So it wasn't like it was like a depth chart type order of everything. But that kind of lays out like a position battle that, I mean, we didn't really expect to that degree with like Grandal taking a place, and then you have Henry Davis, Jason DeLay, and Ali Sanchez. It's just not something, It's not one of the position battles I expected.
No, I mean, I thought it would be how much can Henry handle workload-wise. Like, I figured Henry would be on the team. I figured Jason DeLay would be on the team. And if Henry was bad defensively, like, that might mean more playing time for Jason DeLay. And then you sort of figure it out from there. At this point, they're kind of making Henry earn his spot, whether you agree or not. I mean, that's the way this is going to go. And Ben Cherington said, in the same scrum that we're talking about, that's the nature of competition. Like, I asked Ben, that seems like the big talk back home is you guys could potentially start Henry Davis in the minor leagues. I said, is that realistic, and how are you approaching the scenario with the other catching position? And he said, yeah, that's the nature of a competition. Like, we're only keeping two. Somebody's going to lose out on it, and Henry's in competition. So, I mean, in so many words, he's saying that Henry very easily could start in the minor leagues, which is a far, cry from where we were a week or so ago. I don't think that's going to happen, Craig. To be fair, I like what I've seen from Henry a great deal. But, yeah, things have changed back there.
Yeah, it's definitely been weird, man, because I was even talking, Henry has only, I believe, caught, I think it was like 80 or right around 79, 80 games in the minor leagues. So I didn't know what.
Thing Ben brought up. Yep.
And I didn't know what, like, to the extent he could catch at the majors. So I was kind of working a split, but I was honestly working a three-way split. I was working him and Yasmani, and then DeLay filling in, and it just kind of like this. Like I said, this whole thing has thrown me for a little bit of a loop. But when I sit down and think about it, like, he was drafted in 2021. Injured at the end of 2021, injured in the wrist in 2022, hurt his hand last year, even when he was playing in right field. So he hasn't gotten, a ton of reps.
Right. Yeah, and that's their sort of rebuttal or explanation for why it's possible that they could keep Henry in the minor leagues. Like, I don't think anybody's rooting for this. I don't think the Pirates, they're not like, oh, let's prevent them from earning service time or something like that. Like, no, I mean, they're in the position where they want Henry Davis to be good and help their team. But the way they look at it is, if he needs a little bit more time to catch, and you then look at, like, the number of games played, it's not dissimilar from, I don't know what catchers have come out recently. Adley Rutschman would be one. I'm trying to think about a couple, recent guys who have made it to the big leagues. Like, they don't feel like Henry, like Henry's workload in the minor leagues has been the lightest of that group. So if Henry needs a little bit more seasoning, they're okay with it. I think fans are going to be upset. I don't think Henry's going to love it, but I don't know. I just, where I'm at with this, Craig, is I think everybody needs to just chill out a little bit, let it play out. Henry's performance and how he handles catching is going to dictate what happens here. Like, if he's good hitting, catching, he's going to be on the big club. If he stinks at both, he's probably going to be at the minors. If it's 1-1, I think we're going to have that discussion, and it's going to be a little bit more nuanced.
Yeah, and here's the thing is that he's been down there with Skeens, catching with him. He's been working on it all off season. But like I said, an off season is a lot different than a game and game planning and different stuff like that. But let's move on to where a position battle we kind of expected a little bit more exists, and that would be at second base. You've got Peguero, you've got Bay, you've got Gonzalez, you got Jared Triolo. Jason, this one should be exciting with all of these young kids.
It should. And we talked to Cherington today. I thought it was interesting. Earlier in the offseason, or maybe it was Sheldon. Earlier in the offseason, we talked about really liking Triolo more as a utility guy. But one thing Shelton said today was that he's going to be very much in the thick of the second base competition. And he said something about some of the good utility guys I've had over the years. And when he talks about that, it's generally like Ben Zobrist, Marwin Gonzalez, maybe one more. But he said one thing they all have in common is their ability to set down roots at one position if that's what their team needs. So I think Triolo could do that. I agree with you. There's a lot of exciting young talent. I think as we get into games, as we get into more position player heavy stuff, it's really going to be cool to see how these guys compete. G1 Bay is not here. The other three are. Peguero has put on some weight. You can't miss Leo Peguero. It is so fun to watch him goofing around and seeing his personality come out. I was watching them stretch and throw and get loose and stuff in the outfield. He's screwing around, talking about this, that, and the other, and Rowdy Tellez is looking at him and kind of joining in. There could be some fun personalities, and Peggy's definitely one of them.
Yeah, he definitely is. They put out a video, I think it was on the Pirates' Instagram, of him and Endy kind of goofing around a little bit, and he just, you root for that kid just because he is just excited to play baseball. I mean, I think of, I think I've referenced Ted Lasso twice. And I know I'm behind the times on Ted Lasso, but it's like the one player that just basically says football is life, and it seems like that kind of Peggy just lives it. It's like baseball is life, and he's just happy to be doing it.
There's a lot of, by the way, I was having this discussion with somebody today. What a great clubhouse this is. I don't know if they're going to win. This is not a comment that has anything to do with them winning or losing. But in terms of personalities, good people, likable people, it's fantastic. It's such a joy to be around this team because they're not jerks. They're respectful. They're funny. They give you stuff to work with. That part of it's great.
Yeah, it's definitely, and another big personality is involved in yet another what I see kind of I don't know if it's a position battle, but I mean, over in right field, you have Joshua Palacios, which, I mean, he always has a smile on his face. You've got Edward Olivares, and you've got Connor Joe. And Connor Joe, I don't know Olivares that well yet, but Connor Joe always has a smile on his face. So it's just another group, but you've got three players for maybe two spots.
Well, and I mean, one of those spots is also going to have Rowdy Tellez playing quite a bit, too. And don't forget, you theoretically could be wanting to get Andrew McCutchen in the outfield. I think your person that you're going to use to spell Brian Reynolds and Jack Sawinski could be Edward Olivares. He could bounce over to left and center. I'm not sure it would be ideal, but they could work it out. The more I think about this, Craig, the more I think about, do we really need Kutch to play the outfield? I'm not sure they do. I'm not sure it's that big a deal. But I like Palacios a lot. Had a conversation with him today. Connor Joe as well. I like the platoon with Joe and Tellez. And I know people got upset about Rowdy Tellez and, saying, this is the best Pirates are going to do at first base. I mean, if you look at the numbers and what they did last season, they were better without Carlos Santana than they were with him. That's an unpopular opinion, but that's the same thing that they're going for here. They're trying to spend $5 million and achieve a near 800 OPS, which is actually a very efficient use of talent. It takes another roster spot to do it, but Jared Triolo saves them a roster spot by being as versatile. So you're basically, you're even. But anyway, long-winded way of saying there's some intriguing stuff there.
if you ever see me out and about in Pittsburgh, you will always recognize me. And not just because of the white beard, but also because of the Y that is always on top of my head, the hat I always wear. The Yins brand, proud partners with Bucs in the Basement. 3 dynasties, 1 brand, Yins. Finally, 1 brand to rep all black and gold. Follow at Shop Yins for new merch drops and giveaways. Order online at www.shopyins, the emphasis on the 2 Z's, high quality comfort, lightweight materials, a new modern look for the black and gold. Made for Yins by a Yinzer. The other part that's kind of been talked about a lot, especially with, Cherington today, was, the starting pitching. And I heard the word pivot a couple times. I definitely do like the, believing and have faith in some of these younger players, a Luis Ortiz, a Quinn Priester, Rowanzi Contreras, and somebody who gets mentioned from time to time without any prompting, Bailey Falter. All still pretty young guys, pretty inexperienced guys to a degree. But I know that people are, you put that out there, Jason, and it was like, oh my God, he put himself out to the wolves, even though you weren't the one that said it, you were just the one that put it out there. But man, that really fired some people up.
What did I do now, Craig?
No, you just basically put out the quotes that Cherington was, we pivoted away from starting pitching. We really believe we still like to add a starting pitcher, but it didn't sound so sure as it had, back at, around the time of Pirates Fest.
Yeah, no, I hear you. And I had that thought too. I asked the very first question of our session with Ben, I asked him something to the tune of, so are you guys going to get another starting pitcher or what? It was pretty blunt and just kicking it off. Let's go. When he didn't answer it directly, he said, I think we should be worried about focusing or, improving all areas of our team at all times. I'm like, that's an interesting way of answering the question. It wasn't like, yeah, we need a starting pitcher. We're monitoring the market, all this stuff. There's a different way of answering it. I still think they're aware enough that they need to get an additional starting pitcher, and he did offer that answer later in the interview. But it was interesting, and the pivot thing, I guess I can try to provide this sort of context and what I know and all that stuff. They didn't want to pay the going rate. I'm not defending it. I feel like if you're running a team and you're not willing to pay the going rate for Luis Severino, forget Shohei Ohtani, you might need to reevaluate how you're doing business or what you're doing or how much you're allowing people to spend, whatever. I don't like it, but I'm relaying the message. I don't think they wanted to pay the going rate, so they said, screw it, we're going to take a little bit less money, dump it into Aroldis Chapman, try to shorten games, and we're just going to commit to getting one of the cheap options, the Domingo Germans of the world, or maybe try to swing a trade. We'll see if they can swing German or trade, or both, or whatever. But they, basically said, it's not worth it to extend ourselves to this degree. Maybe I shouldn't phrase it like that because it sounds like I'm defending it, but, they're just saying, we don't want to deal with it. We'd rather go these routes.
Yeah, and I don't think it sounds like it's defending it. I think it's definitely, more explaining it.
It's defending it, Greg. They get very mad and think that I'm endorsing this deal. No, just try it. Don't shoot the messenger.
Yeah, and another piece of this kind of, Jason, is the difficulty in actually making a trade. I know people play video games. I don't play video games anymore unless I'm playing them with my kids, and it's usually me, getting shot 100 times in the head while playing Fortnite. But I think that it's okay, well, we want this guy. We have these guys. These people should make this trade because it would just work out better for our team.
Right.
And it doesn't really seem to be much of a, I don't know, it's just not they're tough. That's why trades don't happen as much as they maybe should.
Yeah, I mean, it's weird that they can't just say, here's all of our bad players and give us your good players. I don't understand. That's the easy way of doing it. But no, I get it. And the other complicating factor here is, I'll be critical for a minute. I think Cherington is reluctant to deal prospects. And to a degree, I understand where he's coming from. He has to keep prospects to win here. He's not going to be able to spend a ton of money. He's got to preserve prospect capital. Now, do I think this deal would be do I think they're looking at a situation where he's got a deal like Solomedo, Chandler, something like that? No, I don't. But I do understand, being somewhat hesitant to pull off a trade. Who knows what other teams are asking for of the Pirates? But at some point, I would argue they have 3 starting pitchers. They have a whole bunch of uncertainty right now. It would go a long way to land somebody. And, I know the Edward Cabrera thing was a topic because of me and other people, but, there's a reason it's a topic. It makes a lot of sense. And if you have to give a little bit to get somebody like that, I don't see a problem with it.
Yeah, and it would, improve the current state of the team, and that's kind of where I've gone. I mean, everybody knows I love prospects. On top of doing, this show with Chris, I do my own minor league show, once a week, because I love to talk about prospects, but at some point in time, like the big league club has to win, and it kind of makes me think, though, with, one of their most recent signings, the guy that's the other part about Cherington is that if they're linked to somebody, it's almost like this is not going to happen because he, operates in the shadows or something, because it's you'll hear something 2 hours beforehand and then a guy is signed, and it's not it's surprising that a position they went after, but it's a player that's not even been linked or mentioned to the Pirates. The most recent is Josh Fleming, which not a lot of people probably know who he is, but I mean, he was a pretty big part of the Tampa Bay Rays in 2020, which I know was, a few years ago at this point in time, but he's a guy that comes with some pedigree and has been successful in certain roles.
Well, the one thing, and to build off of that, Craig, that the Fleming signing showed me, or Brent Honeywell, the Pirates are going for a type. They're very clearly trying to recreate Tampa's pitching system. I don't know if they're going to, but I mean, they're bringing in guys like that. They're willing to, are you a starter or a reliever? We don't know. We'll figure it out. You might be both. We're going to match you up. They're trying to figure this stuff out. Whereas other teams just say, well, we need to go out and buy a starting pitcher or trade for a starting pitcher. You have this group of traditional starting pitchers. And they're just not going to do that. And they're going to take guys, that Fleming is one of them, and look at them and say, we can fix your cutter. You haven't thrown that enough. That can be a really good pitch. We've had success working with guys who had cutters. Come here. This is how we're going to fix your cutter, and it's going to make you better. And so that's what they're trying to do with Fleming. I mean, there's going to be other things and other pitch usage things that are unique to guys. But, yeah, they very much operate in the shadows, and they very much look for just their type.
Yeah, and it reminds me of something. I don't even know what spring training or what time it was when Shelton spoke. I mean, this might have been last year, 2 years ago, 3 years ago. He was just basically talking about we see everybody as an arm. And it was you'll have some guys that will carve out their roles as a starter, but they were more looking at it as, okay, this is how many innings that have to be pitched within a season. How do we get to that? And it was if it would be with openers or piggybacks or, full bullpen games or whatever it would be, as long as we're successful, we're going to try to figure out how to get those innings. And it's definitely, I mean, it's not how some teams operate, especially when you see the Cardinals go out and it's okay, we need 3 starting pitchers. I mean, Gray is a great starting pitcher not great, but really good. And it was just but we need 3 3 starting pitchers to fill out our rotation, so we're just going to go get them. And I feel like a lot of fans would like the Pirates to operate like in a similar vein. I'm just not sure they're going to.
No, I don't think they're going to either. And I think there's going to be a mix, right? Like, there's going to be some guys that are treated like traditional starting pitchers. Mitch Keller is going to be treated like a traditional starter. Mostly Marco Gonzalez, Martin Perez. If they would sign, Edward Cabrera or Domingo Germán or whatever, like, those guys would also be treated that way. But I think there's also a degree of, just kind of cobbling it together. And if you look at what the Rays do, like McClanahan's treated as a normal guy or was treated as a normal guy, Zach Eflin or whomever, they always have a group that they're just normal, but they're also they also have, they're going to open, they're going to have a bullpen game, they're going to have 3 innings, 4 innings, shortened starts. And I mean, that's where I see this going. I mean, you've got this group of young arms. We were kind of talking about it earlier, but whether it's Rowe, Priest, or Ortiz, Jackson Wolf, Jarrett Jones, you now got Honeywell in that mix. Willie Peralta could be in that mix. Josh Fleming could be in that mix. We're like, you only need him to go through the order once. If a guy at Bailey Falter's another one, if that guy has enough stuff to get 9 hitters out, or be effective against 9 hitters, that's all you need. And then you bring in the next guy, they don't get a second look at you. I get the logic, I do.
And it was successful for them. I know it was almost out of necessity, but I keep on, like Chris and I, when we talk, it kind of keep on going back to this, is that, after the trade deadline, when they were operating like a 500 team, they were doing so with a 2-man rotation and a bunch of arms.
I know. How about people forget that? There's been so much anger this offseason. And, like, I understand. I mean, you want your team to invest in things that they need to invest in. I'm not going to discount that. But we should step back and remember that they did what they did with 2 starting pitchers. And a lot of, like, creative usage. So I'll give them that. They've got a pretty good idea how to do this stuff. I also think they have a nice young core of players, that even position players, that could be pretty good. And then you tell me, we're going to add O'Neal Cruz back into the mix, where Brian Hayes, Brian Reynolds, they're productive. A smart combination of things at first base, they can be better. What if Henry Davis is good? Like, all of a sudden, that's a pretty interesting discussion.
Yeah, and it does take, I mean, you can't throw Quinn Priester out yet. He doesn't have that many innings. That people are throwing out Roansy Contreras, but they want Cabrera. I know Cabrera's stuff is great. I mean, this is just kind of where I'll go, is that he had a bad season, good season, and not a great season last season. Ton of walks, different stuff going on, and I'm not saying he wouldn't be a good pitcher, and I think that he would improve the team, but you also, Luis Ortiz, there's just so many guys that their careers, and going back to kind of what Grandal said, is their careers are kind of just beginning. I mean, could they fall off and the careers maybe be over? Yes, but their careers are just starting. So you can't, like, really write them off just yet. I still want another starter. I do, Jason, but but I can kind of see where, and you do, I can feel like everybody does.
I mean, both can be true. Like, we can still want another starter and say, like, the young guys need to come through. I look at it this way. They're not all going to stick. They can't. They just get the law of averages. They can't all be terrible. Somebody's going to work out. That's a logical trade for the Pirates to make. Edward Cabrera, team control, whatever. I don't love the Germán signing enough. I feel like that's just inviting things that you maybe don't need to invite. But be that as it may, you need one more starter. And then at that point, you're counting on what? You're counting on somebody to work out. A year ago, Roansy Contreras was pitching for the Dominican Republic in the World Baseball Classic and was really, really, really good. Luis Ortiz has thrown 100. Quinn Priester was, high draft pick, incredibly good pedigree. I was talking to Quinn and Rowe today. Some really good conversations about what they did this offseason, how they freed themselves up, getting more athletic, getting back to, they both felt like they were entirely too stiff and thinking too much and lost velocity. Like, it's in there. It is absolutely in there with those guys. And, if Mitch Keller taught us anything, it's that it's not worth it to react after 1 year. Sometimes it just takes a little bit longer, and that's okay. And it might take those guys, into this year. It might take them into next year. But, I will say that the Pirates need to have those guys figured out. And obviously time is of the essence. They need them to figure it out very soon if they're going to win games.
Yeah, I mean, and here's the thing is, we don't know, what a team looks like on paper can be, completely different from what a team ends up looking like on the field. Only time will tell. And speaking of telling, Jason, there's something that you told me earlier here. It's something that will be, out in the Pirate Twitter sphere or X sphere and everything, before this drops. Jason, what's the news that you broke when this comes out?
Yeah. So I'm leaving the Pirates beat, but I'm not going far. Ron Cook retired at our paper, as most people know. I will be taking over for Ron in the columnist role. If I sound morose, it's because I don't know how to handle it. This has been my biggest aspiration since I got into this business. I always told myself, like, that's the pinnacle. That's what I'm going to work toward. So I have worked like a crazy person and do what I've done, and I'm beyond excited that it's here. I'm also weird about leaving the beat. I like it. I like everything that this involves. I like the team that I cover. I like the fans that I interact with. I just keep telling myself that I'm not going far, right? Like, I'm still going to write about the Pirates. I still have latitude to do stuff around there. Hopefully you'll still have me on from time to time. I'll still have opinions and hopefully some insight. And, in the columnists that I've seen that have done this job well, I mean, you can go and report things, and I should be around. And to do my job well, like, I don't know another way. So I'm going to be around learning things and all that. So anyway, it takes effect April 1st. Anybody listening has probably found that out by now. So you're stuck with me for all of spring training. But I'm shifting into another role, and the beat will be in plenty capable hands. I'm not going to get too much into how it's going to be staffed, but Andrew Destin will be staying. My boy Rowdy will be hanging around and doing great work, and we're going to, really excited about the transition plan.
And Jason, I will definitely have you back on because, I mean, as you know, you're a Pirates beat reporter and people that we go to for information. But honestly, dude, I at times just like talking ball with you.
Yeah, I like talking ball with you. I like talking ball with a lot of people. I just, I hope that baseball is a very big part of what I do in this next role. If baseball has been a very, very big part of everything I've done in my life, I can't imagine doing something else without baseball being a very big part of it. So I've already warned the Pirates guys who are, going to be handling this thing for us, like, I'm probably going to annoy you. I'm going to try to not annoy you, but I like this. So, and they're like, oh, you're fine. So I'm like, thank you. Thank you for tolerating me. But yeah, and I need it, man. It's such a great beat. It's such a great fan base. I have really, and Sports City, I was born here. I feel like I know it pretty well, but I went to this beat because I thought it would be a sneaky great baseball town and really incredible to experience that. And I did, and it exceeded my wildest expectations. And I just could not be more grateful for that.
Well, Jason, congratulations are in order. Definitely very well deserved. For anybody that doesn't, please follow Jason Mackey. I'm pretty sure anybody that's listening to this probably already does. At JMackeyPG. Jason, like I said, congratulations. Have to have you back on here again. And when I do get down to spring training sometime in March, hopefully we run into each other.
Yep, look me up. We're good to go.
Absolutely, brother.
Hip, hip. Now I see the changes in this town. They change, they say